Walgreens abandoned San Francisco because of leftist policies, creating a shoplifting crisis. This article is from a year and a half ago, but it breaks down so clearly and concisely. Here's what happens when you change policy on shoplifting. This is the broad strokes of how that goes and why Walgreens closed down so many of its San Francisco stores and why we got Walmarts closing down. I've been reading about those nonstop, just about, one every day, covering that whole thing. Walmarts. You got a Safeway in San Francisco. You got a Safeway in Fisherman's, Wharf closing down and they came right out and said it, shoplifting. We can't stay profitable. Can't stay profitable. What's the deal? How did we get here? What's going on currently and what's going to happen moving forward? Let's get into it. Let's see what the deal is in San Francisco. Economics students learn in their 101 classes that basic markets can't function without a few prerequisites, namely the protection of private property rights. That is really interesting. I'm from Seattle. Here in Seattle, private property rights, that's a subjective thing. I mean, what's mine is theirs, and what's theirs, it's not mine. But, that whole, share with your neighbor thing. Yeah, we take that very seriously. Your stuff can get stolen in any of these cities where you've decriminalized shoplifting, where you've decriminalized drugs. You've created the perfect petri dish for stealing stuff, selling it, buying drugs, rinse, repeat, and you just keep going all day to the point where Walgreens in San Francisco says no mas, and they're out, right? This happened a while ago. I covered it a while ago, but now you're starting to see, not only, Walmarts, but Safeways, other small stores. Because if the big boys can't stay open, the small independent stores, they've been toast for a while. So it's an introductory concept because it's almost self-evident. How can people do business if they're not secure in their property and profits? Well, they can't, and they don't, because these big corporations, the Walgreens, the Safeways, the Walmart, those have to answer to shareholders, right? And those shareholders aren't going to say, hey, you know what? That whole private property rights thing, that's just so overrated. Go ahead and steal stuff from, the stores that we're investing in. I'm sure the stock price will be good. It'll be fine. It'll work out. Yeah. Rampant shoplifting theft, which is, going to impact the bottom line. It's just not that big of a deal. It's pretty overrated, said no shareholder ever. That's not how this works. And yet the folks that are running these cities, namely San Francisco, and to date, Seattle, we've got some of the biggest nut jobs in our city council ever. Portland, say the same thing. Do you think you might have some shoplifting issues down in Portland as well? Do you have businesses closing in Portland as well? Yes, you do. You got Green Zebra. That's closing down. You got the 2 last Walmarts in city limits in Portland shutting down. That was just announced. No mas Walmarts in Portland. You got 45 in the surrounding communities, but in Portland proper, you got no more Walmarts. I find that just to be ironic. I find that to be about right. You know what I mean? Yet the furthest left faction of today's Democratic Party, which governs in the most liberal bastions such as San Francisco, has abandoned even this most basic lesson. Well, they don't believe in capitalism. They believe in communism. And, how has that historically worked out? Yeah, tricky, right? So none of these folks, even as high up as mayors, oftentimes they will have zero business background. They got voted in by a bunch of knuckleheads who don't understand business. And then they wonder, well, why is Walgreens leaving our fine town? Why are they leaving? Walgreens is so busy and yet they're closing it down. Well, because so many of those cars in the parking lot were there to steal from said store. Yeah. And we're literally watching that news story unfold in front of us in the form of the Walmart story, of which I've covered, a ton. And everybody just wants to say, well, it's the headwinds of the retail apocalypse. It's people stealing stuff. And in these communities where it happens, everybody knows it. It's not that hard to figure out. So when you've got articles that, like this one that states, hey, here's what happened and here's what happened, I'm all over them. I'm all over it, right? Just this week, the pharmacy chain Walgreens announced that it will close 5 of its stores in San Francisco, citing theft and retail crime as the main motivator behind its decision. Keep in mind, this article is from a year and a half ago, but everything in this article basically points to where we're at now. And it's been this ongoing narrative, right? You can't stay in business when you can't control your business from the standpoint of something that's outside of your control, which is shoplifting going on. When that has just been green lit by your city leaders, then, it's up to you, however you want to react to that. And Walgreens is basically saying, not so much. We're going to take our business and we're going to move our business to somewhere else where we've got, the better ability to handle organized retail theft, rampant shoplifting that's going on. So just this week, the pharmacy chain Walgreens announced that it will close 5 of its stores in San Francisco, citing theft and retail crime as the main motivator behind its decision, which is really interesting. It's really interesting that they came right out and said that. And I remember covering this topic. You could probably find a podcast way back, probably 400 and something podcasts back there. Probably more than that. I don't know. It's a lot. Organized retail crime continues to be a challenge facing retailers across San Francisco, and we are not immune to that, Walgreens spokesperson Phil Caruso said. Retail theft across our San Francisco stores has continued to increase in the past few months to 5 times our chain average. 5 times the chain average. Okay, so you take that and apply it to any other store operating. That's what you're dealing with. During this time, to help combat this issue, we increased our investments in security measures in stores across the city to 46 times our chain average in an effort to provide a safe environment. So they massively increased whatever they could to try and prevent shoplifting. Not happening. Still got to shut them down. Walmart, same darn thing. They know all the things they need to do. I mean, all these stores kind of worked, the organized retail theft, the different entities that try and combat that, they've all got, similar technology. And then, some of the stores are, too old to retrofit to put in 46 times the chain average of trying to prevent security measures. Some of these stores just won't, they're not conducive for that. So you've still got massive shoplifting going on. You can't control what, the physical environment of the store because of the actual structure itself. Shut her down, shut her down, shut her down. And that's what's going on. These aren't the first stores in San Francisco that theft has forced Walgreens to shut down. In October of 2020, right at the height of the pandemic, just taking off. Remember that? I mean, that was, well, we were in it by then, October of 2020. So it was November and December, we were heading in of 2019. And then March of 2020, it was like, oh, we're shutting all the stores down here in Washington, except for the big ones, of course. And, schools and everything else got shut down. Let's go work from home 15 days to, soften the curb. 2 years later, still doing the same damn thing. So these aren't the first stores in San Francisco that theft has forced Walgreens to shut down. In October of 2020, it closed one location that was reportedly losing more than $1,000 a day due to shoplifting. So a quick, let's round it up to $400,000 that's being shoplifted from one location. Some of these stores, I think Walmart has 5,000 stores across the U.S. Multiply $1,000 a day by, 5,000. And you might say, well, yeah, but these big corporations, they can have 10, 11, 12 billion dollars in profits. So they can afford it. Well, decisions aren't made based on whether they can afford it or not. It's based on how much money are they retaining as profits. And if a certain store doesn't retain enough in profits, it's on the chopping block. Boom, gone, done, just done. Yeah. Like the 2 Walmarts in Portland and Portland proper, no longer there because Walmart said, yeah, too much of our stuff going out that front door. We're closing them down. So now there are literally, Walmarts in the 45, there's 45 Walmarts in surrounding communities right outside of Portland proper, but not in Portland because it's, it's got leadership that has allowed this situation to just really blossom, to really take hold. I'm talking about shoplifting and organized retail theft. Yeah. It's not just a mega corporation that's getting hurt here. It's these stores' employees, their customers, local economies, and even local governments that will lose tax revenue. Yeah. How about that? Think about that. All the tax revenue from these businesses shutting down. Yeah. It impacts everybody. It impacts the whole food chain. How about when we talk about the local economies, how about all the people that, get the goods to Walgreens? Those people are going to have less hours to work because there's less stuff that needs to go because you got, a store that's shut down. So people in that communities, yeah, you might say, well, yeah, but somebody else will pick it up. Walgreens is pretty big. Walmart's pretty big. Safeway is pretty big. All these stores, CVS, they're all pretty big. And we've seen just so many of these go by the wayside because they can't stay in business given the economic climate of shoplifting being okay. And that's literally what's going on. So until you start to get a little bit tougher on shoplifting and organized retail theft and crime in general, don't expect, big changes. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing time and time and time again. It should work out this time. It just doesn't go that way, does it? I am completely devastated by this news. This Walgreens is less than a mile from 7 schools, and it's been a staple for seniors, families, and children for decades. This closure will significantly impact this community. Well, what I would say is, I'm sorry to hear that, and I understand that's going to impact you. But what has already been impacted is your community by allowing shoplifting, allowing theft, allowing crime, and allowing drugs to run rampant. Your community's already been impacted. This is just the tail end of that. This is the door hits you in the ass part. Yeah, we're closing. Oh, that's horrible. It's terrible for the community. Yeah, what's already happened has been terrible for the community. This is just, add on to that. This is insult to injury, right? Yet none of this is a coincidence. The city isn't just experiencing a run of bad luck. Its rampant shoplifting problem is directly rooted in its terrible policy choices. As I've previously explained, in 2014, a ballot referendum passed that downgraded the theft of property less than $950 in value from a felony charge to a misdemeanor. That was Proposition 48, I believe, maybe 47. I can never keep that track. So Proposition 4, whatever. The local government's lax approach to enforcing property rights and the rule of law has directly fueled this shoplifting crisis. We have more than anecdotes to prove it. Research concluded that in Santa Monica, California, crimes downgraded by the ballot referendum increased 15%, while those the change did not affect fell 9%. Weird. Huh. Statewide data shows that larceny thefts rose 9% after the 2014 policy shift. And part of the reason for me reading this article, even though it's, from October 2021, is that over time, I believe this stuff has just gotten worse. More and more people who are going to steal for a living, who are going to steal for their drug addiction, they're just they're emboldened by all the stuff they see on the media. Hey, you can just rob whatever you want and nobody's going to do much. And even if you get caught, you might do a little bit of time. But for stealing a shopping cart full of goods out of the store in San Francisco, not much is going to happen to you. Not much is going to happen to you. So these stores, their hands are kind of tied as far as what they can do. And even if they do bring these shoplifters to justice, oftentimes you got a district attorney or, whatever. You got a judge. You've got folks that don't really believe in punishing people for criminal activity. There isn't, punishment for actions, for bad actions. It's just, be a good person. Come back next time. Hey, we'll see you again. And that's how you have these, felons, convicted felons that have 95 arrests. Not that hard to figure out, right? Simply put, the city government sent the message that shoplifting wouldn't be as harshly punished, and shocker, criminals listened. Now, stores such as Walgreens and entire local economies that rely on them are suffering as a result, and that suffering continues. You got fewer and fewer stores in these communities where shenanigans are most prevalent. By shenanigans, I mean broad daylight thievery. As the famed free market economist Thomas Sowell once said, property rights belong legally to individuals, but their real function is social, to benefit vast numbers of people who do not themselves exercise these rights. Because it's kind of it's a broad-based policy, but we're not following that policy. Like whatever's in your car, yeah, you can get that jacked. How about the news crew in San Francisco? Jacked for the second time. They had their window just bashed out and in 4 seconds pulled out equipment bags with all kinds of, cameras and stuff. Well, the news crew had been robbed before, so they had security guys with them. The security guys grabbed the stuff back, but how blatant is that? I mean, no wonder these stores are closing down because they just can't get a handle on what's going on, right? You can't get your arms around something that is a massive deal socially, which is drug addiction and criminal activity and everything that goes along, and homelessness that goes along with all of that ecosystem. Stores, you're going to see fewer and fewer of them in these areas. It's not going to go the other way. Hey, there's a lot of shoplifting and a lot of tinfoil going on around here. Let's open up a new company. Let's do that. No, it's going the other way, right? It's going the other way. We're now, and a perfect example of that is how the downtown cores of both San Francisco and Portland are probably struggling the worst in the entire United States. And there's quite a number of reasons for that, but a lot of it is people don't want to work in downtowns where they don't feel safe, where their car gets broken into, where they get, they don't want to be around that kind of environment. They don't want to have their safety impacted by going to work. If you got a bunch of nut job homeless people, which in San Francisco, you don't have to go far to figure out that's what they got going on. It's not surprising that people are like, yeah, I think I'll stay in my jammies at home and continue working. Portland, same thing. Nobody wants to go into downtown Portland. And how do we know this? We know this from activity on cell phones. How many people are in that community walking around? Not enough to keep the shoplifting down. We're now witnessing in San Francisco what happens when policymakers eschew this basic economic principle in the name of social justice, and the results are ugly indeed. Now, where I would say, the whole social justice thing, in the name of social justice, a lot of these policies have been implemented. And you know who they impact the most? People in the BIPOC community. Economically challenged. Those who can least afford the impacts of this social justice warrior stuff, which just basically means we're not arresting anybody for anything. What's yours is mine and what's mine is not yours. And, all of these policies that we've put in place. Do you think we're going to pull those back? Are we going to start getting hardcore on shoplifters? Doesn't really feel that way, does it? No, it doesn't. It doesn't feel like that's the direction we're going at all. Well, the direction we're going, and what has been really interesting in all the Walmart closures that I've seen, is that you had the CEO come right out and say one of two things is going to happen. And then on the, prices go up and stores get closed. And then all of the media coverage is just like, oh, nothing to see here. No. Business is open, business is closed. That's just what happens. And everybody else, especially folks on YouTube in the comment section, they're like, yeah, this store not performing at a corporate level that we're comfortable with is, doublespeak for shoplifting. They're shoplifting too much shit out of the store, and that store can't remain profitable, period. Huh. Nobody wants to say that out loud because everybody has realized, everybody knows. So back in 2021, back in 2020, we used to call it right out for what it was, which was shoplifting. And now you've got all this corporate doublespeak for stuff because people are aware of, well, some of those choices we made, like that Proposition 4748. Yeah, that might be coming home to roost here. And the fact that you've got stores that don't want to stay open because it's not profitable, and their shareholders, one of those business economic type principles thing is you can only remain not profitable for so long, and then you got to close those doors up. And that's literally what you've got going on. But the media spin is such where, yeah, we made some decisions and, it's tough. And we want to, all the people that were working at this store, we're going to offer them jobs elsewhere. And hey, we've really enjoyed serving you guys for the last 25 straight years. And we hope that you continue shopping at us. Not at this store, unfortunately, because this mofo is closed down, but at our stores in the surrounding communities where we're going to leave them open because their leadership, they didn't embrace the same concepts that you guys did. We're taking your store. And hey, you can always shop at walmart.com. You can go online. So yeah, you've got this retail apocalypse and all the shoplifting is happening, but nobody is really stating that. And I read a lot of articles on this. I do a lot of research. So this article was really good from the Washington Examiner and kind of just dialed in. Hey, here's the deal. You make policy, crime's going to go up, stores leave, period. Boom, done. Pretty basic to me. Now, moving forward, let's talk about moving forward. Do you think any of these communities are going to get tough on crime? They're going to have a take crime more seriously stance? I don't think so. I think they kind of like it the way it is. Yeah, you can have food deserts. You can have all kinds of places shut down. I think they're okay with that. They're like, F corporate. This is just the greatest thing ever. Because, like Portland, Portland's allowed Antifa to just thrive, right? 100 straight nights. They love that shit. Well, now they're downtown core. They're trying to figure out, okay, all these empty commercial buildings, maybe we make them into apartments for the, for low income folks. Okay. How's that working out in Skid Row Housing Authority, basically going bankrupt by doing the exact same thing down in LA? We got all these empty buildings. Let's just make them into housing. Yeah. You take old buildings. The only thing that's going to make them new is a lot of money continuously over time. And when you've got people on drugs and you got people that are psychotic tearing up your housing units, you can't make a profit over time to fix everything else up that needs to be fixed. So that's a storyline. If you haven't caught that storyline here on News for Reasonable People, that's a pretty wild one. I think I've covered that at least a couple of times. But all of this, well, let's just take the vacant, abandoned building and we'll make it into housing for the poor. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. It's just a hard no-go. And you might say, well, Sean, what if you do this? What if you do that? Yeah, hard no-go. Not going to happen. Just like these communities probably taking a tough stance on crime. Hard no-go. Moving forward. So, I'm covering Walgreens. I'm covering Walmart. What else is going to go? What other big chains are going to go? Let me know in the comments. Because not only is this, retail Armageddon, this is shoplifting, closing up stores Armageddon. And we're watching it unfold in front of us. Maybe not in your community, because maybe you're in one of those communities that, I don't know, got more of a red tone to it. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Love to have you subscribe. Love to have you hit that notification bell. We're dropping 2 videos a day, one at 9 a.m. and one at 11 a.m. Once on Saturday, once on Sunday. Got a lot of content. Hit that notification bell. Share this content. If you know somebody that would appreciate this channel, I would love for you to share content with them. All right. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.